When you're talking about the need for inclusion, for creating an environment, for telling people how, giving people an idea of what the experience of working for a company will be. When I hear that, I think of employer brand. Is this an issue where having an employer brand and communicating that clearly to applicants might be particularly effective for female applicants because it'll give them a better sense of this is our company culture, this is our style, this is what it's like to be here?
One approach is a lot of companies are very clear on their employer brand. Bringing that up in an interview can be very beneficial if it's an employer brand that's positive and obviously has things to offer that women respond to. So bringing that up and discussing it in an interview, absolutely. And which brings me to the flip side of that, however. One thing that I always caution employers is they must be honest and realistic about expectations in the workplace, about hours, about the challenges, about the income if it's a commission type thing. Because what happens, they paint a rosy picture, aren't quite realistic because they're afraid if they tell the truth, they won't be able to bring the recruit in. Then the women get on board and feel betrayed and feel lied to. Once that trust is broken, it's very difficult to rebuild it, if it's possible at all. And that's part of that relationship that women are looking for.
The other thing that struck me is when you were talking about the need for inclusion and kind of collaboration, that kind of suggests that an employer, well, let me ask you this, how, when, I'm not asking any question here, is it particularly effective when employers use group interview situations for female applicants? Does that process alone engender some feeling of collaboration and some feeling that there are more parties involved in the decision?
A group approach to interviewing oftentimes can backfire with women because then they don't feel taken seriously and they don't feel important enough for the employer to spend a one-on-one time with them. If they start with a group approach and then definitely break into one-on-one situations and they have that time, it can be helpful, but at the very beginning when the women don't know the other people involved, it's a toss-up. It depends on how many women are in that group process. You know, if it's all women, then yes, they're going to feel safe and feel involved. If they're the only women in a group of 6 people and the rest are men, then no, they're going to feel singled out and won't feel confident in asking questions or being themselves, really. Any group looks for other members of its own group to feel comfortable, whether you're women or you know, people of color or men. So I know that's kind of a confusing approach to that. I personally don't recommend group recruiting situations.
When I say group recruiting situations, do you hear that as here are 6 applicants in the room answering questions at one time, or do you hear that as here are 6 team members who are interviewing a potential addition to the team? So the way I've seen this work is if you were applying for a job and I was going to be your supervisor, I might interview you the first time, and then for a follow-up interview, you might come in and meet with 3 or 4 people who you'd be working with closely. Maybe they'd be immediate colleagues, or maybe they'd be someone in another department that you would interact with. Mm-hmm. And those people you'd have a discussion with them, so you'd get a feeling for for who they are and what it'd be like to work with them, and they'd get a feeling for the same for you.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you think that situation might play out in terms of this greater emphasis that female applicants might place on collaboration and community?
A group interview situation depends on the strategy and the purpose of setting it up. If it's set up to see if the applicant can handle the pressure of talking to, being interviewed by several people at once, it can go either way depending on whether that specific applicant can handle that. If it's to help women feel more a sense of community, it depends on how many men are in the group, depends on how many women are in the group, and it depends on the particular people in the group if they recognize that that's what women are looking for. And let me say that a woman applicant isn't sitting there consciously going, okay, I'm looking for my community here, I'm looking for my relationship. This is part of the genetic wiring. It's not even top of mind. They feel comfortable when it's there, and they know that it's there, and they may not even be able to identify it as such. So it's not like they've got a checklist looking for that. Keep in mind those style differences. A lot of times people in power, which oftentimes are men at the higher organizations, interpret a softer style of communication or a different style as weaker or less competent or less managerial. Things like women using tag questions. For example, this is a good report, don't you think? Now, hear how that sounds like I'm asking permission to have the opinion that it's a good report, when a more masculine style would be, good report. So men or people of power hear that tag question or inclusive language like, well, let's do this, or how about if we do it this way, when what she's thinking is, here's how I want you to do it. But that softer style is foreign to a masculine style and then is viewed as less competent. When it's not, it's just a style difference. And there's so many of these style differences that I could, spend hours in this interview covering, but it's just a style difference. So it's so important not to jump to conclusions and draw assumptions that a woman is less managerial or less authoritative or less competent just because of her different style of communication.
Good. You kind of touched on some of this a little bit before, but I kind of want to go back to it because I think it's important and see if there's anything that we didn't get into.
Okay.
Are there certain benefits? Are there certain perks? Are there certain things that employers offer that tend to be particularly valuable to women?
There are so many things that employers can do to help make their company more attractive to women, both for recruiting and for retention. We all know what an expensive problem attrition is these days, and how much talent, the brain drain, and we've got to attract women because it's half of the talent that's out there and actually becoming even more than half of the talent. Not to mention being able to attract women customers, because you can do a better job with that if you've got people that they can relate to, which is more women. And that works for any group, not just women. Many things that employers can offer. First of all, the most important, flexibility. Women want to be able to spend times with their family. They want to be able to go to that soccer game. They need flex hours, and that's huge. That's the number one thing. And by the way, it's not just women. As the millennial generation is coming up, they're requiring this as well. And this goes back to the statement that I made earlier, that everything in play that benefits women also benefit men and people of color as well. So flex time is one of the things that we can offer. Mentor programs. A lot of companies assign a mentor when a woman first joins, or when a person first joins, for the first year to follow them through. A new hire buddy to help them through the recruiting and the get on board process. Job shadowing programs to help them learn, because women really want training, lots of it. They want education, so the more training you can offer, the better. Coaching programs, even telecoaching for women that are out in the field. Maternity coaching, which is a new thing that's up and coming, where a coach is assigned, and this is a specific business, so it has to be a maternity coach, to help women process out, of a company onto maternity leave, help them set up their boundaries, what kind of communication they want, how to make sure everything's taken care of while they're gone, how to transition back into the company, get their confidence back. And the emotional things that go along with their identity being changed if it's their first child, because becoming a mother is a huge difference in their identity and who they are. Oh, so many things. Bring kids to work days, allowing them to bring pets in, brainstorming on different ways to acknowledge good work, because they need that emotional security. They need to know that they're being taken seriously and that they're appreciated. Connecting their job, specifically what they do, to how it makes a difference in the world. Women want fulfillment from making a difference, and somehow make that connection and continually reinforce how their job really makes a difference.